There comes a point in your life when you realize something important. Not everyone you meet is going to treat you with kindness, respect, or fairness. Some people will test you, some will provoke you, and some will try to pull you into their chaos because they can't manage their own. But your strength isn't defined by what they do, it's defined by how you respond. Hurtful people don't break you unless you hand them the tools. Today, I want to show you 3 powerful ways to stay strong, stay centered, and stay unshaken, no matter who stands in front of you. Because your peace is not for negotiation and your power is not up for grabs. Let's begin. Your strength isn't loud, it's controlled. And most people misunderstand that. They think power has to be displayed, broadcasted, or proven. But real inner strength doesn't need validation, applause, or an audience. It's the kind of strength that shows up when someone pushes your buttons and you don't give them what they're looking for. It's the strength that keeps you stable when someone else is trying to pull you into their emotional chaos. Controlled strength is quieter, calmer, and far more effective than any loud reaction you could ever give. Because the moment you let someone trigger you, you hand them control. But when you stay centered, you take your control back, fully, completely, and confidently. People who try to hurt you are often trying to test your emotional limits. They want to know how far they can push you, what they can get away with, and how deeply they can influence your mood. But your response, or lack of response, teaches them everything they need to know. When you stay composed, you show them that their words don't define you and their behavior doesn't intimidate you. You show them that your self-worth isn't dependent on their approval, their tone, or their attitude. And once they realize they can't shake you, their power over you fades. Controlled strength is a boundary disguised as calmness. It's your internal line that says, "You don't get access to my emotions." But let's be honest, controlled strength doesn't always feel easy. You might feel the anger rise or the hurt hit you. You might feel the instinct to defend yourself or prove them wrong. That's natural. But the goal isn't to feel nothing. The goal is to manage everything. Controlled strength means you acknowledge your emotions, but you don't let them dictate your actions. You don't allow someone else's chaos to influence your decisions. You don't allow their negativity to determine your next move. Instead, you step back internally and remind yourself, this doesn't belong to me. This is a reflection of them, not me. And just like that, you detach. You free yourself from their emotional grip. When you learn to stay calm in the presence of hurtful people, you become someone they can't predict. They don't know what will get to you because nothing gets to you the way they expect it to. And that unpredictability makes you powerful. It shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, they feel exposed. They feel unsure. They feel their own behavior bouncing back at them without the reaction they wanted. And in that moment, you become the person who sets the tone. You become the one who decides how the interaction goes and not them. Controlled strength is choosing peace over pettiness. It's choosing clarity over chaos. It's choosing to walk away from unnecessary battles because you know winning isn't about proving a point. It's about protecting your energy. Hurtful people lose their influence the moment you stop reacting and start observing. You don't need to match their anger, mirror their attitude, or fight for your dignity. Your calmness already proves you're in control of yourself, and that alone makes you stronger than anything they try to throw your way. People hurt others because they lack control over themselves. It's one of the hardest truths to accept, but once you understand it, you stop taking their behavior personally. Hurtful people don't act out because you deserve it or because you did something wrong. They act out because they're fighting battles inside themselves that they don't know how to handle. Their outbursts, their coldness, their criticism, none of it is a reflection of who you are. It's a window into what they're carrying. And when someone carries emotional chaos, it spills. It spills into conversations, relationships, and moments that had nothing to do with you. The mistake we often make is believing we caused the spill, but their mess is their responsibility, not yours. People who lack emotional control often use hurt as a way to feel powerful. When their insecurities rise, they push them outward. When they feel small, they try to make someone else feel smaller. When they feel unseen, they lash out so someone notices. And when they feel overwhelmed, they try to dump those heavy feelings onto others. Hurtful behavior is rarely about malice. It's usually about mismanagement. Someone who feels grounded and confident doesn't need to tear others down. Someone who feels at peace doesn't search for ways to disturb yours. But someone who's drowning inside needs a distraction, an outlet, or someone to project their turmoil onto. And unfortunately, they choose the people closest to them because those people feel safe. That's why you must learn to stand firm and not let their projection become your reality. When you recognize that someone's hurtful actions come from their internal instability, your entire approach changes. Instead of reacting emotionally, you start observing logically. Instead of taking offense, you take distance, emotionally or physically, depending on what's needed. You start seeing patterns, not personal attacks. You start understanding motives, not absorbing blows. And suddenly, what once felt painful or unfair starts to reveal itself as predictable behavior from someone who hasn't learned to manage their inner world. This shift doesn't excuse their actions, it simply protects you from being pulled into their storm. When you detach from someone's chaos, you regain control over your own emotional state. You stop blaming yourself. You stop questioning your worth. You stop thinking, what did I do to deserve this? And instead ask, what are they struggling to control within themselves? That single question creates space for you to breathe, analyze, and choose how you want to respond. And in that space, their power over you weakens. They no longer get to define your mood, your day, or your sense of self. The strongest thing you can do around hurtful people is hold on to the truth that their behavior is not a measurement of your value. Their anger doesn't define you. Their bitterness doesn't stain you. Their criticism doesn't limit you. You don't have to internalize what was never meant for you. When someone lacks control over their emotions, they try to hand that lack of control to others. But you don't have to accept it. You can stand firm, stay centered, and keep your peace intact. And that is how you remain untouchable in the presence of someone who hasn't learned to master themselves. Emotional distance is defense, not weakness. People sometimes confuse emotional distance with coldness, but that's not what it is. Emotional distance is clarity. It's choosing not to absorb everything that's thrown at you. It's choosing not to let someone else's bad mood, rude comment, or passive-aggressive behavior sink into your system. It's understanding that you can witness something without letting it affect your inner world. Hurtful people often rely on your emotional openness to get inside your head. They push, provoke, and poke because they want a reaction. But when you maintain emotional distance, when you step back internally and refuse to personalize their behavior, they lose their grip. They can't control what they can't reach. Most people think they have to engage every emotion that rises within them, but you don't. You don't have to feel everything that enters your space. You don't have to validate every attack with a response. You don't have to carry every emotion that someone tries to hand you. Emotional distance gives you a filter. It lets you decide what deserves your energy and what doesn't. And when you're around someone who is hurtful, unpredictable, or emotionally unsafe, this distance becomes a protective layer. It keeps you from internalizing pain that isn't meant for you. It keeps your mind calm even when the environment around you isn't. Emotional distance also allows you to stay strategic. When you're not overwhelmed by emotion, you can assess the situation more clearly. You can see the patterns in their behavior. You can evaluate whether this person is acting from insecurity, frustration, or unresolved issues. You can choose the best response instead of reacting impulsively. And often, the best response is no response at all. Not because you're avoiding the situation, but because you understand that not every behavior deserves engagement. Emotional distance helps you conserve your strength. It helps you pick your battles wisely. It helps you remain in control when someone else is trying to destabilize you. There's strength in giving yourself space to breathe, space to think, space to protect your peace before someone else's chaos drags you down. That space is not a wall, it's a boundary. It's you saying, I can be here, but I don't have to absorb this. And that boundary is essential when dealing with people who thrive on emotional reactions. They want to see you frustrated. They want to see you shaken. They want to feel like they can influence your state. But emotional distance denies them access to your inner world. It keeps your emotions yours. You're not obligated to connect emotionally with someone who consistently brings negativity into your life. You can care, but from a distance. You can communicate, but with limits. You can be present, but not exposed. Emotional distance is not about pushing people out. It's about protecting yourself from being pulled under. It's about creating enough room between you and their behavior so you can see clearly and respond effectively. And when you master that, you stop being easily manipulated, easily provoked, or easily drained. You become someone who can stand in the middle of someone's storm without letting a single drop touch your spirit. That isn't weakness. That's mastery. That's power. You're not required to engage every attack. This is one of the most liberating truths you can learn when dealing with hurtful people. Not every comment deserves your attention. Not every accusation deserves your energy. And not every moment of disrespect requires a reaction. People often assume that staying silent makes you weak, or that if you don't defend yourself immediately, you're somehow letting the other person win. But the reality is the opposite. Silence can be one of the strongest responses you have because it shows that you're not controlled by someone else's behavior. You're controlled by your own discipline. When someone attacks you verbally or emotionally, what they're trying to do is pull you into their arena. They want you to fight on their terms. They want you to step into a space where emotion replaces logic. The moment you react impulsively, you start playing the game they initiated. But when you choose not to engage, you take away their battlefield entirely. You remove the ground they're trying to stand on. And that isn't avoidance, it's strategy. It's realizing that your energy is too valuable to waste on people who thrive on conflict, drama, or control. Choosing not to engage doesn't mean you're ignoring the situation. It means you're evaluating it. It means you're asking yourself whether the other person is acting out of anger, insecurity, or emotional instability. It means you're assessing whether responding will help or simply escalate the situation. And when you decide not to respond, you're making a conscious choice to protect your peace. You're not suppressing your feelings. You're mastering them. You're keeping your emotions where they belong, under your control. There's power in restraint. It shows that you don't need validation from the person attacking you. It shows that their opinion doesn't define you. It shows that you're not emotionally available for someone else's chaos. When you stay silent, you force the other person to sit with their own behavior. They don't get the satisfaction of seeing you break, react, or defend yourself unnecessarily. Instead, they are left alone with their own words, their own intentions, and their own insecurity. And sometimes, that silence speaks louder than anything you could have said. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to pause. You're allowed to respond later when your mind is clear and your emotions are steady. You don't owe anyone instant access to your reactions. You don't owe anyone the version of you that emerges when you're triggered. You owe yourself composure. You owe yourself clarity. And sometimes, the smartest, strongest move you can make is to remain quiet until the moment passes. People often reveal more about themselves when you don't react to them. Their intentions become clearer. Their patterns become obvious. Their emotional instability becomes visible. And while they unravel, you stay centered. You stay grounded. You stay in control. You're not here to fight every battle thrown your way. You're here to protect your energy, your peace, and your sense of self. Silence is not surrender. It's choosing your battles with intelligence. It's recognizing that your strength isn't proven in how loudly you respond, but in how wisely you decide not to. And the moment you master that, you become someone who can't be baited, manipulated, or shaken. You become someone who stands fully in their power, without ever raising your voice. Your boundaries are your armor. They are the invisible lines that protect your emotional, mental, and even physical space. And the truth is, most people don't set boundaries because they fear conflict, rejection, or being misunderstood. But the moment you avoid setting boundaries to keep someone else comfortable, you make yourself uncomfortable. Hurtful people, especially, will always test your limits. They push a little at first. Small comments, subtle disrespect, small intrusions, and if you allow it, they push again and again. Not because they deserve more from you, but because you didn't make it clear where the line is. Boundaries don't make you harsh, they make you clear. They tell people exactly how to treat you without you having to repeat yourself. A boundary is not about controlling another person's behavior, it's about controlling what you allow and what you tolerate. When someone repeatedly crosses those lines, ignoring your needs, dismissing your feelings, or pushing past your limits, you have every right to tighten the perimeter. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to apologize for it. You are responsible for the space you give people in your life. And sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is limit that access. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. They're a reminder to yourself that your energy is valuable and not everyone deserves unlimited access to you. People who struggle with boundaries often feel drained, anxious, or resentful because they give more than they should and receive less than they need. But when you start enforcing your limits, everything changes. Your relationships become more balanced. Your interactions become more intentional. And the people who truly care about you will respect those boundaries without hesitation. It's only the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries who will be offended when you finally enforce them. And that tells you everything you need to know about their intentions. Setting boundaries around hurtful people is one of the strongest forms of self-protection. You don't have to take every call. You don't have to respond instantly. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to participate in conversations that drain you or environments that unsettle you. You get to choose what you engage with. You get to choose what you allow into your life. And that choice is your power. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are filters that let the right people in and keep the wrong behaviors out. When someone continues to cross your boundaries, it's a sign that they don't respect you, or that they're used to you not respecting yourself enough to enforce them. That's why you must be consistent. Hold your ground. If someone speaks to you disrespectfully, end the conversation. If someone keeps pushing past your emotional limits, create distance. If someone repeatedly drains your energy, reduce their access. You don't have to cut them off completely, but you do have to adjust the level of closeness to a place where you feel safe and steady. Your boundaries aren't a punishment, they are an act of protection. They shield your peace, your confidence, and your emotional balance. And once you start living with strong boundaries, you stop attracting people who take advantage of your kindness. You stop tolerating behavior that hurts you. You stop giving out chances to people who don't appreciate them. You learn to choose yourself without guilt, and that is when you finally understand that boundaries aren't just armor, they're freedom. Don't absorb, observe. This is one of the most important skills you can develop when dealing with hurtful people. Most of us are taught to internalize everything. If someone snaps at us, we feel responsible. If someone pulls away, we question ourselves. If someone criticizes us, we let it sting for days. But that reaction comes from absorbing, not observing. Absorbing means you take their behavior into your system and let it affect how you see yourself. Observing means you step back and watch it for what it truly is: information, data, patterns, clues. When you observe instead of absorb, you stop turning their behavior into a personal wound and start treating it as evidence of who they are, not who you are. Hurtful people show you their patterns long before you feel their impact. They repeat the same reactions, the same tone, the same dismissive comments, the same defensive habits. When you absorb, you get caught in the emotional charge of the moment. You feel attacked, disappointed, or confused. But when you observe, you start noticing the consistency. You begin to see that their behavior is not random. It's predictable. It's habitual. It's rooted in something inside them, not in anything you've done. Observation gives you clarity. It allows you to separate your identity from their issues. It helps you realize, this is about them, not me. Observation also gives you emotional distance. When you see someone's behavior as data, you stop reacting impulsively. Instead, you start choosing your responses with intention. You ask yourself, is this behavior normal for them? Or is this really about me? That small pause is powerful. It gives you time to process, to breathe, to decide. And in that space, you regain control. Hurtful people lose their ability to destabilize you because you're no longer letting their behavior sink into your emotional core. You're analyzing it from the outside, like an observer watching a scene unfold. When you observe people, you learn who they truly are. You see what triggers them. You see how they handle pressure. You see whether they take responsibility or shift blame. You see how they treat you when they're stressed, insecure, or disappointed. And over time, these observations help you make smarter decisions about how close you should stand to them. You're not reacting out of hurt. You're responding out of understanding. You're not basing your choices on emotional impact. You're basing them on patterns you've seen repeatedly. And this is how you protect yourself without closing your heart. Observing doesn't mean you disconnect from your feelings. It means you don't let someone else's behavior hijack your emotional state. You can care and still stay clear. You can listen and still remain steady. You can be present without being pulled in. The moment you shift from absorbing to observing, you become harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, and harder to influence. You become someone who responds with intelligence instead of reacting from emotion. When you watch people's patterns without taking them personally, you gain power. You stop giving people emotional access they haven't earned. You stop allowing their bad days to become your bad days. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't trying to understand you. And you start making decisions based on facts, not feelings. Observing frees you. It protects your peace. It sharpens your instincts. And it teaches you that people always reveal themselves, not through their apologies, excuses, or promises, but through their patterns. When you learn to observe those patterns without absorbing the pain behind them, you rise above hurtful behavior with a strength that can't be shaken. Own your space and your state. This is one of the most crucial principles when dealing with hurtful people. Because the truth is, most people surrender their emotional state without even realizing it. They let someone's tone shift their mood. They let someone's judgment make them doubt themselves. They let someone's insecurities make them shrink. But your emotional state is your territory. It's your internal space. And if you don't protect it, someone else will try to claim it. Hurtful people often rely on emotional invasion. They step into your space with criticism, negativity, or manipulation, hoping you'll react in a way that benefits them. But when you decide that your state is non-negotiable, you take back the power they were hoping to steal. Your space is not just physical, it's psychological. It's the area where your confidence, self-respect, and identity live. And the moment you let someone dictate how you feel, you've allowed them into that private territory. They don't deserve that kind of access. Not everyone earns the right to influence your emotions. Not everyone gets a front row seat to your reactions. Hurtful people especially should not be invited into that space. You cannot control their behavior, but you can absolutely control how close to your inner world you let them get. And that separation is what keeps you grounded even when their behavior is unpredictable. When someone tries to tear you down, they're usually trying to shake the ground beneath you. They want you off balance. They want you doubting yourself so they feel taller standing next to you. And they want you emotionally reactive because a reactive person is easier to influence. But when you own your state, you refuse to let their storm become your storm. You listen without absorbing. You observe without collapsing. You stay centered even when they're spinning out. That steadiness doesn't just protect you, it exposes their instability. It reveals their inability to control themselves. And suddenly, the dynamic shifts. You're no longer on the defensive. You're in control. Owning your space also means not allowing someone to shrink your presence. Hurtful people often use intimidation, guilt, or blame to make you doubt your right to stand tall. They want you quieter, smaller, less confident. But you have every right to occupy the space you're in. You have every right to speak with strength, to hold your posture, to maintain eye contact, to stand firmly in who you are. Your presence is not arrogant, it's intentional. When you hold your ground, emotionally and physically, you communicate a message without saying a word. I am here, I am steady, and I will not be moved by your behavior. Owning your state also means managing your internal voice. Hurtful people may try to plant seeds of doubt, but you decide which thoughts you nurture. You decide what you replay in your mind. You decide what you attach meaning to. The more you strengthen your inner dialogue, the less power their words have over you. Your state is shaped by what you choose to give importance to. And the moment you stop giving importance to hurtful behavior, it loses its influence. When you take ownership of your emotional space, you stop being easily shaken. You stop being an easy target. You stop being someone who can be thrown off course by someone else's insecurity. You become stable, grounded, and unmovable. And that is when you truly understand the power of emotional independence. Your state belongs to you, not to them, not today, not ever. Confidence isn't a feeling, it's a choice. Most people think confidence is something you either have or you don't, that it rises and falls depending on how you feel in the moment. But that's a misconception. Confidence isn't dependent on emotions. It's a deliberate decision to show up as your best self, regardless of how you feel inside. Hurtful people often target the cracks in our emotions because they know that if they can shake our feelings, they can shake our actions. But when you treat confidence as a choice, you take that power back. You decide how you present yourself, how you hold your posture, how you speak, and how you react, independent of your internal doubts or fears. That decision alone can disarm anyone trying to undermine you. Choosing confidence means standing tall even when uncertainty creeps in. It means walking into a room or facing a person without letting internal hesitation dictate your outward behavior. It means showing up consistently, even when your mind is filled with questions or your heart is unsure. Confidence as a choice is about controlling what you can, your actions, your words, your presence, rather than obsessing over what you cannot control, such as someone else's opinion or behavior. When you show a steady version of yourself, you project strength, and that projection is often more powerful than any internal feeling you may be wrestling with. Living this way also rewires how others perceive you. People respond to the energy you present, not the doubts you harbor. Hurtful individuals often rely on seeing hesitation or insecurity to gain leverage. But when you choose confidence, you create a protective layer. You communicate without words that you are in charge of yourself, that you are aware of your worth, and that you are not easily shaken. You teach others how to treat you, simply by refusing to let insecurity dictate your interactions. Choosing confidence is an act of authority over your own life. Confidence as a choice also means practicing resilience. It's understanding that setbacks, criticism, or hurtful words are temporary events, not permanent reflections of your ability or value. You may feel uncertain inside, but you act decisively outside. You may feel hurt, but you respond with composure. You may feel fear, but you move forward anyway. This is where the real power lies, not in the absence of fear or doubt, but in deciding to act in spite of them. That decision, repeated over and over, builds a habit of steady, unshakable confidence. When you embrace confidence as a choice, you stop waiting for permission from yourself or anyone else to be strong, assertive, or present. You stop giving hurtful people the chance to define your self-image. You take back control of how you appear, how you interact, and how you move through the world. Confidence becomes a conscious tool rather than a fleeting emotion. And the more you practice it, the less reliant you are on circumstances or feelings to validate you. You learn that strength is not something you feel, it's something you embody, consciously, deliberately, and unapologetically, every single day. This is the kind of confidence that can't be shaken, no matter who stands in your way. People respect what you reinforce. It's one of the most overlooked truths about human interaction, yet it is the cornerstone of how you maintain strength around hurtful people. Every time someone treats you a certain way, and you allow it without consequence, you send a message about what you accept. Every time someone crosses a line and you stay silent or accommodate their behavior, you reinforce their belief that it's okay to treat you that way. Respect is not automatically given. It's earned, yes, but it's also taught. And the lessons you teach others begin with your own actions and boundaries. When you consistently reinforce what is acceptable, people begin to adjust their behavior toward you. Hurtful individuals are particularly sensitive to what you tolerate because they often operate from testing limits. They will push, prod, or provoke to see how much you'll allow. If you immediately respond to disrespect or manipulation, you are setting a standard. You will not tolerate this behavior. If you ignore it, excuse it, or absorb it without consequence, you are teaching them that they can overstep your boundaries without any repercussions. Respect is therefore a learned behavior. People learn it not through words, but through the repeated patterns of your responses. Every time you enforce your limits, you are silently but powerfully teaching them how you expect to be treated. This principle also applies to your own sense of self-worth. The way you reinforce your boundaries directly impacts how you see yourself. If you allow hurtful behavior, you're telling yourself, consciously or unconsciously, that it is acceptable to be treated poorly. But when you stop, when you walk away, when you enforce your limits, you reinforce your own dignity. You affirm that your feelings, your energy, and your presence matter. And that internal reinforcement is just as important as the external. It strengthens your confidence and fortifies your emotional resilience. People can sense this self-respect, and they often mirror it in how they treat you. Reinforcement is not about aggression or domination. It's about clarity and consistency. You do not need to respond with anger, but you do need to respond deliberately. If someone crosses a boundary, correct it. If someone repeats hurtful behavior, create distance. If someone continually disrespects you, limit their access to your life. Each of these choices reinforces your standards and teaches others how to interact with you. People may resist at first, they may test your resolve, but consistency ultimately reshapes the dynamic. It transforms interactions from chaotic and draining into predictable and respectful. The lesson here is simple. Your actions are louder than words. Every time you allow disrespect, you reinforce that it is acceptable. Every time you enforce your boundaries, you reinforce your value. Every time you walk away from someone who continuously hurts you, you reinforce that your peace is non-negotiable. And when you consistently reinforce your worth through deliberate action, you create a life in which hurtful people either learn to respect you or they no longer occupy your space. That is the power of teaching respect, not by demanding it, but by showing every day exactly what you will and will not tolerate. The strongest person in the room is the one who can stay unshaken. Not the loudest, not the angriest, not the one who reacts fastest or hits hardest. The strongest person is the one who remains calm when chaos surrounds them, the one whose presence doesn't waver even when others try to disrupt it. Strength is not measured by volume or aggression. It's measured by stability, by control, by the ability to maintain your center when everything else is attempting to pull you off balance. Hurtful people are constantly looking for weaknesses to exploit, cracks to pry open, reactions to manipulate. But the moment you cultivate a calm, unshakable presence, you remove their leverage. You become untouchable, not because you dominate them, but because you do not allow them to dominate you. Being unshaken does not mean you feel nothing. It does not mean you are immune to frustration, disappointment, or pain. It means you have trained yourself to respond rather than react. It means that when someone tries to provoke you, you pause, you breathe, and you decide how you will act, not in anger, but in strategy. The strongest person understands that immediate emotional reactions rarely lead to positive outcomes. They understand that responding impulsively gives power to the person who is trying to unsettle them. Calmness is the ultimate refusal to surrender control. It is a shield against manipulation, a safeguard for your dignity, and a statement that no one else has the authority to dictate your internal state. When you stay unshaken, you also inspire respect. People notice composure, even when they don't consciously recognize it. Hurtful people, who thrive on inciting chaos, are disarmed by calmness. They may escalate initially, trying harder to provoke you, but consistent stability breaks the cycle. They start to realize that their attempts to manipulate, belittle, or destabilize are futile. And over time, others in the room, those who observe the dynamic, begin to see you as a source of reliability, authority, and strength. They look to you for steadiness, for leadership, And for perspective, the calmest person becomes the anchor in a sea of emotional turbulence, and that anchor holds far more power than loud words or quick tempers ever could. The unshakable person also protects their own energy. Emotional volatility, anger, or constant defensiveness are exhausting and easily exploited. But when you remain centered, you conserve your energy for what truly matters. You don't waste it on people or situations that are meant to drain you. You choose what deserves your attention, and you allocate your strength deliberately. This approach doesn't make you passive, it makes you strategic. You act when it counts, and hold your ground when it doesn't. Your calmness is a weapon of precision, not force. Ultimately, the strongest person in any room is the one who can face provocation without compromise. They do not allow insult, aggression, or manipulation to penetrate their inner peace. They carry themselves with quiet confidence, setting boundaries without aggression, teaching respect without yelling, and maintaining their composure regardless of the chaos around them. Strength is not in the reaction, but in the restraint. Not in the volume, but in the silence. Not in the storm, but in the calm at the center of it. To be unshaken is to be untouchable, to be powerful beyond the reach of anyone's attempt to disturb you, and to live on your own terms without surrendering your peace to another person's turbulence.